It's only a kick, a jump, a block. It's only a serve. It's only a tackle, a run. It's only for the fans. After all, it's only pressure. You got this. Adidas.
Hey there! Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower than low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
And welcome to a new episode of the Penscast Mailbag. We are back here tonight, recording on the afternoon of April the 8th, just a few hours before the Penguins take on the Toronto Maple Leafs in yet another crucial hockey game. So anything we say, a lot of what we say may be moot by the time this gets out, but just know that this is being recorded before that game. So not to alarm anyone if we sound like we don't know what we're talking about. If you listen to this after that contest. But before we get into the questions, once again, as you can see, if you are watching, if not, you will hear his beautiful baritone voice here in a second. It is co-host Snail with joining me this afternoon.
What's going on, Robbie? What's going on, listeners? Did you guys catch the eclipse?
It was a little overcast here. I caught some of it. The rest I had to watch through a live stream. We were at about 97% coverage. We were a little off the main track. We were a little south. So, but yeah, we did catch a very fair amount of it. Yeah, so it was very cool. I say catch the next one, but the next one's not for like another 20 years. So it'll be a bit time. But if there's another one in the world that you want to go to, I know that there's some over in Europe in the next couple of years to check out.
Oh, are there?
Yeah, I think there's one in Iceland in a couple of years that I saw. A popular vacation destination now for a lot of Americans. So if you're into that, you can head up to Iceland. But other than that, yeah, cool experience, something that you do not experience very often. So neat to catch.
Yep, super neat. It was completely overcast. It's raining today in Seattle, like it usually is. So I saw like a portion of the, what I think was the sun covered for maybe 3 seconds, and then I went back inside. But seeing a lot of it vicariously through the internet. Curious with there's a lot of superstitions that surround eclipses and all of that. There's a lot of they say a lot of things happen with like animals on the eclipse, and you got to wonder with a big game like tonight, what Sid's doing during the eclipse. Do you think he does any sort of weird ritual?
Well, he said that he was asked if he was going to watch it in Toronto, and he said that he was asked after the skate this morning, and he said that no, because it was in the middle of his pregame nap.
His pregame nap, where Sid is sleeping upside down like a vampire, drinking.
The blood of his enemies.
The blood of his enemies from the Fountain of Youth, whatever it is, and getting ready for another crucial game. Well, today we are doing Mailbag. It's been about a week since we did our last Mailbag, and we will be shooting from the hip today. So, bear with us. We'll be reading off of Twitter some of your questions. Usually we have a beautiful outline mocked up by our beloved Garrett, but things are at the Skating Penguin podcast are in a little bit of disarray. We're getting things back on the rails here. So let's get to these questions. We got 30 of them this week. So if you didn't hear yours today, then you'll be hearing it when we record on Thursday. So with that, Robbie, let's get to some of these. Why don't I kick this off for you here, and I'll read you one. And I'm curious if you have any insight on this, because I didn't hear this at all. And this comes from our good pal Andreas Castle. He says here, I think it's Dejan Kovacevic alluded to something that happened in Dallas, and after that, Sullivan benched Jari for good. Do you have any insights on this matter? Because this sounds juicy, and I want to know the drama.
Unfortunately, Andreas, I have no insights. I'm not an insider in any way. That sounds like something that will be parsed out in the offseason whenever that begins. Obviously, we hope it's not for a couple more weeks. But if something did happen, I don't know. Jari does not seem like the kind of break the team rules kind of guy. Maybe it was just a tipping point for the Penguins. I don't know. Again, at that point, none of the Penguins goaltenders have been really playing well. They blew a 4-0 lead 2 days later with Nedeljkovic in net and Jari. They both played in that game. I don't know what it could be, and I'm not going to speculate. I'm sure that if it is something juicy, we will hear something about it in the coming weeks. Could it be the end of Jari's time in Pittsburgh? I don't know. We will all speculate on that when the time is right, but I don't know. I have no other insider information on that. Unfortunately for you, I'm not going to speculate on what it could be. Jari's personality does not remind me of like I said, a team rules breaking kind of person or a ultimatum kind of person, especially not at this point in the season. So that's all I can realize. I can't speculate. I have no other information. We'll just have to kind of be patient and see how it plays out into the offseason.
I just quickly, while you were talking there, Googled Dejan Kovacevic and Tristan Jari. And going back to, like, it looks like last year, there's a lot of... it doesn't look like Dejan Kovacevic is the biggest fan of Jari. So there's a couple of tweets on that he's tweeted out. Maybe nothing too egregious or anything, but some of these tweets that are popping up, but it doesn't look like maybe he has the most faith in a guy like Jari. So maybe one of those biased takes. Maybe, he could be totally making this up. But, if something did happen, it'll come out, especially at the end of the season. So anyways, I guess we'll wait to see. You got to wonder, though, if there's any sort of I always wonder with where the team's at right now. They've always done those behind the scenes things. I'd love to know what's going on back there with Jari. Just got that contract this year, and Ned's was brought in on a cheap contract to kind of just back up. And what's he started? 7 games?
7
straight?
in a row. Yep, it'll be 8 against Toronto.
Alrighty.
All right, moving on here. We're gonna go with we'll go with Tony Gale, since this is kind of a question for the moment. He says, Pens look like a completely different team over the last few games. Are you back on the train yet? Would be a shame if we miss the playoffs given the season Crosby has produced.
The train, dude, stonks are high. Stonks are rising.
Stonks are rising.
I don't think I was ever totally off the train. I was never jacking for Macklin as Garrett's put his stake in the ground and claim that's where he's at. I've been down, of course, as a fan, things have been down, but you know what? The positivity train has some life again, and I've been hesitant to say, I don't want to be too superstitious or sound like I'm too superstitious, but I've been hesitant to say it too much, because it's like, when they talk about a shutout and then it just always, you ever see that, Robbie? An announcer says something about a shutout and then it ends shortly after. I've been hesitant to talk about it, but yeah, the positivity train's chugging. Robbie, where have you been at? I guess it's been a while since we've kind of talked on here about the state of the Penguins right now, but they held a playoff spot for a brief moment I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, obviously right now back on the train. You might as well until they are mathematically in, or more the case, mathematically eliminated. At this point, you got to hold out hope, because things are trending in the right direction. Obviously, like we said, Stonks rising continually. Tough week here. Actually, just a tough last 5 games. It's not going to be easy, but at this point right now, you control your own destiny. That was not something that could be said back at the end of March. So they're back in control of their own destiny. That obviously requires winning, and right now that's what they're doing. So I am going to, stake my spot on this train, buckle in for the rest of the ride until it stops at either a playoff spot or elimination. So I'm feeling confident right now. Big one in Toronto. Like I said, the one at a time. Not going to focus on what the rest of this week is really, but for right now, we're going to focus on Toronto and hope they can get a dub in the Great White North tonight.
Sounding like a true coach, Robbie. What we're if you were at the press asked, what are you thinking about your tough schedule? We're just worried about Toronto tonight. That's all I got to say about that. Ned's kicking. The team's playing like Robbie, are you getting like, I don't know. So watching some of these games, like the game against Tampa, I know that you were on like a work thing, weren't you? You didn't get to, were you listening?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it, but I did watch the highlights and I followed the game on the way home. And I will say, if after watching the highlights, if I would have witnessed in person Malkin missing his hat trick the way he did, I probably would have had a stroke. Given the gravity of the situation, how much that, man, that is a tough miss, and thankfully they were able to shake it off and still get the win. There was a couple saves that Vasilevsky made that I was just like, why did he suddenly turn in again to like prime Stanley Cup winning Andre Vasilevsky?
Yeah,
he's had an up and down year. It's tough to give up 5 goals and be like, dang, the score could have been like 8-4 if he would not have made a couple 10 bell saves earlier in the game. But I don't know about you, Snail, but if we're on the hype train, I am adding a car. I am fully on the Michael Bunting train.
Oh yeah, dude, yeah. Bunting has been so important to this turnaround that's happened. He came onto the team with like 11 goals. I think he's at 18 now, or maybe 19.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Dude, that Malkin. I mean, he rejuvenated Malkin.
Like, he rejuvenated basically the
whole team. True, yeah. But Malkin's line, there were nights it looked like he had sand in his boots, and now Malkin is just, I mean, he's must watch every game lately.
It's either that or his parents. It's one of the two. But
yeah.
I mean, Bunting has just, again, and there's something to be said about hockey's a business and you get traded, but he has probably a little chip on his shoulder of he signed that big deal in Carolina and he suddenly became a kind of throwaway piece for that team where he thought he was going to have a future. And now he's back with Kyle Dubas. I mean, there's definitely probably some motivation there for him to prove again, Carolina, Jake Gensel's playing great in Carolina, so I'm sure that.
Oh my God, he's fitting in like a perfect puzzle piece there, which is hard to watch.
How great would it have been though if they could have signed Bunting in the offseason and avoided
this whole mess?
Yes, but we're not going to.
Let's go into that a little bit because I actually have a little bit of information I heard from a couple of insiders. Bunting, we gave up Jake Gensel for some, we don't to be determined prospects, and Michael Bunting, the big piece coming back the other way, as we all know. Bunting, I guess, wasn't fitting in Carolina. He was kind of found himself on the outside, maybe looking in from the group. They were looking to move on from Bunting anyways.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, could you have gotten Bunting without having to give up Jake Gensel? But right now, with what the Penguins are doing, I mean, Jake Gensel, you just don't know what the team looks like if you keep Jake. You just don't know. And Bunting is providing what we've talked about for like a year, about this team needs a guy like him who just adds that piss and vinegar, that juice, and he's so competitive. I'm not saying anything about Jake Gensel, but I'm talking solely about Bunting. He brings an element that has been needed on this team since they got rid of Tanev and Hornquist.
It's really too bad they couldn't still have Jake Gensel. That is,
Imagine him on a line with Sid and Jake.
Yeah.
That would be a tough line to play against. But anyways, we'll move on. But yeah, a little interesting tidbit I heard, and yeah, Bunting's a huge piece as to why this team's kind of turned around. The proof is in the pudding, Robbie. That element gets a team going. All right, let's move on here. I got another question queued up, and this one's also coming from Tony Gale. Referring back to the previous pod, Stadium Talk. If you ever visit the UK, Wembley Stadium, 90k capacity, Twickenham for rugby, Millennium Stadium in Cardiff is also a great venue. Although I do prefer smaller venues, do you prefer smaller or large venues for live sports?
Twickenham is a made-up place. I do not believe that is real. So you tried to catch us on a fast one there.
That's from Harry Potter.
That is a Harry Potter thing. That is not a real place. Cardiff, I believe, is a real place. But
Cardiff Devils, there's a hockey team there.
I would love to go to a game at Wembley. I'd love to see a rugby match somewhere. I think I said that before. I think for a mega sporting event, I like a bigger crowd. But for like a hockey, it's kind of like, imagine like a 70,000 seat indoor hockey game. That's a lot of people. Like, that's an unfathomable. Like, you couldn't do that with good eyesight. That's why the outdoor games don't have the best visuals, because it's just so big.
What about some of those the arenas they'll construct for like Olympics and stuff? Have they ever had a massive arena kind of like? I can't think of any that like off the top of my head, but like, would some of those arenas they constructed for the Olympics be massive in comparison to like a NHL arena or not? Is that not
like
true?
London Stadium, which is still in use, which was created for the London Olympics, is like a football stadium size wise, not a hockey arena. It's not like a small hockey arena. Again, hockey, you don't need the space of like a football field. The dimensions of the ice are not nearly as big as a football field. So you do need more space. Again, more people are going to pay to watch football than hockey. I think for a hockey game, I love the smaller arena feel. I like the noise. I like the intensity. And I think that way, I think it depends on the sport. I think for football, a bigger crowd's better, especially college football. I want as many people in that venue as possible because the atmosphere can be incredible. But in a hockey game, the atmosphere is much better with a packed 16,000 seat stadium rather than a half empty or 20,000, a half filled 40,000 seat stadium.
I mean, that's kind of, you're hearing right now the Arizona Coyotes playing at Arizona or whatever. It's I've heard that it's an unreal crowd. One, because you have crippled drunk college kids that get like half off tickets, but it's a more intimate setting. And
you're right on top. Yeah,
you're right on top. It's packed. You always hear like junior rinks players remember fondly playing in like, those old junior barns because it gets so packed. The whole city comes out and packs the barn, and especially like in a playoff run or something. I've been a part of that here out in the Northwest, the Silvertips and the Thunderbirds. When they play each other in one of each other's barns, they're smaller and it gets rocking in there, and that's what's cool about it. So,
nice.
But there's nothing like a baseball, like a baseball stadium. I love when you look out across, like I look out across Safeco Field or whatever it's called now. Feels like the outfield is a mile away. It's so far. It feels like it's so far away, and it's kind of creates a cool feeling. Really feels like you're at like a park or something. Not just a baseball park. You're out having a beer.
I agree with that.
Anyways, yeah. What is Wembley?
Right. Wembley is a multi
tennis.
No, it's soccer.
Oh.
But it's a multi-use stadium, really. But Wimbledon is tennis.
Wimbledon. That's what I was.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So that question went to me. I'll go with this one. This is a gear question. This is from Brian. He said, I guess it's a bit of a gear question, but should the league entirely go to face shields? If you can eliminate a potential injury, why not just do it? It's like players wearing neck and wrist guards since the tragic death of Adam Johnson earlier this season.
Well, there's only a few players left in the league that don't use face shields. I'm assuming he's talking about the half visor, or is he talking about a full?
I would not be supportive of full shields.
No.
I don't think the players would ever buy that. But again, something like that would have to pass through the PA, the Players Association. So that's not happening. A full shield and half shields. I think anymore half shields are mandatory at lower levels, and like it just. And again, it's one of those things that when you change it down at the lower, it just changes at the higher levels too.
It does. So there's only a few players left in the league. I'm trying to think of who it is. It's Ryan O'Reilly, Ryan Reeves, Jamie Benn, I think Zach Bogosian, and Wayne Simmons was one of them, but I think he's retired now. Those are the only guys that I can remember off the top of my head. I think even like a year ago, there was maybe only 6 or 8 of them. And I think that's 3 or 4 for you. So that's grandfathered in. So if you haven't been wearing one, you don't have to. But once those guys are retired, there's no face shields anymore. The one thing I kind of like the old school look, like when I watch old Penguins games on YouTube, like barely anyone on the whole team has visors. It's like only a few players. Everyone goes no visor. But the one thing that I will say that having a visor rule, I've seen this happen and it kind of bugs me. So you get a player like Jamie Benn, for example, and you get a high stick on him. It's a penalty. But because he doesn't have a visor on and you draw blood up here, it turns into a double minor. Where if he had that visor, the penalty, you wouldn't be getting the double minor. It would just be 2 minutes. But because he lacks protection there, I almost feel like, well, if you're choosing not to wear a visor and you get cut up high on your face, that's your choice to not wear a visor. I don't think they should do the double minor. That's the only weird little thing that I've thought of that makes it a little bit unfair to not have a visor, because I've seen it actually happen.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really care too much about the visor rule. I miss the old school look, but like he mentioned, Adam Johnson, which we all know the net guards, you see more and more of them in the NHL, and they become mandatory at lower levels. You see the reason. I mean, players have literally had to retire because they get high sticked in the eye and they can't see right anymore. So
yeah,
if you like watching hockey and you like watching your favorite players play, you want them protected so that they're not forced to retire early for some reason, an errant stick, whatever it is. So that's kind of my take on it. Robbie, you got any
Not
take
really.
on the visors?
Yeah, I think it's it's just one of those things that it was eventually going to change anyway, and it's just going to keep happening. Eventually, like you said, it's going to be that nobody is not wearing visors, and I think the NHL handled that remarkably. The NHL did not botch that transition, and it seems to have been working to get to where they want to be.
Okay, moving on with let's go to Brian for a couple questions here. Our lovely, loyal Brian. I got a couple here queued up that I think will be good for this pod. Let's go with Brian says, I bet Garrett loved that line brawl to start the game between the Rangers and the Devils. It had to happen. Rempe refused to answer the bell in the meeting prior with Curtis McDermott, but good for him for stepping up. And we, like he said, he not only did Rempe answer the bell off the face-off, but the whole team responded, and we saw everyone but the goalie fight. Even the coaches got into it.
I was really actually surprised we didn't see goal. But again, the coaches probably didn't want their goalies thrown out. And then, especially with New Jersey having played the night before, they're probably like whoever's coaching Jersey now, who is it? Travis Green. Travis Green is probably like, listen, there's going to be a brawl. Don't fight. And again, they're not in a position, and the Rangers aren't in a position where they'd want Shesterkin or Quick. It was Shesterkin that night to get hurt with a punch or falling. You just don't know. But 8 out of the 10 guys that started the game were immediately ejected. Jimmy Vesey and whoever he fought were the only 2 that got to play the rest of the night, simply because they were quickest on the glove drop and fisticuffs. They actually were technically considered the first fight, where everybody else, obviously, even our old friend John Marino, got thrown out of a hockey game for fighting I can't remember. Did he fight Truba? Was it Truba that he fought? Or
No,
was
he
it
fought he fought Miller, that young defenseman
okay.
Miller.
Yeah, Keandre Miller. That's right.
Keandre Miller. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure Garrett was. He probably had a little cry, but it was. I wasn't even watching right away because I mean, it was going to blow up. I didn't expect it to blow up quite that quickly, and I certainly didn't expect a full out line brawl. Rempe, you just kind of expect that he's going to fight, but yeah, it was. You don't see that. That's rare. I mean, that's rarer than.
Oh yeah, nowadays you never see that.
Yeah, you don't see that anymore. You maybe get a good line brawl a year, if you were lucky. But yeah, that's old fashioned hockey. About as distilled as it comes, and they thrown hands and a bunch of ejections, and the refs finally applied the rules correctly because sometimes they ignore the third person in kind of second fight kind of stuff. But I guess in that situation, one, they didn't want it to go on all game. Two, that's not something you can really ignore because that's pre-planned. But yeah, wow, just something you see much anymore.
Love that it was two rivals doing it too. You just want that young New Jersey team that's going to be relevant, whether they make playoffs this year or not. They're going to be around for a long time. And the Rangers, they're an older team all of a sudden. I feel like they just went through that rebuild, and now all of a sudden they're kind of an older team. I love to see the blood boil. I'd love to be at a game where that kind of tension is in the air. But yeah, awesome stuff, I thought, out of the Rangers Devils game there. I was hoping to see Laviolette and Greener just go at it too.
Yeah, I don't like that seemed kind of performative because I mean you both started your two bruisers. You knew it was going to happen. I mean, that was all agreed upon. That was kind of loser mentality by both coaches, in my opinion.
It's never going to be like Tortorella chasing someone down the hallway.
No.
Like that'll never happen again.
No.
But yeah, you just love to see the I loved it.
All right, sticking with Brian here for next question. I don't even know what number on at this point. He wants to know: can we revisit the Sid for Hart convo? Are we sure he doesn't win it, especially if they make the playoffs?
I think that Sid is really on this tear because he just wants to make sure that he beats McKinnon at the Hart for the Hart Trophy.
That would be amazing.
That is his whole. That's it. He's so competitive with Nate McKinnon that he absolutely does not want him to get it. So he's making a late push for it. But no, I think that Sid, if they make the playoffs, he's going to get votes. Is he not?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I would not be, if they make the play after where they were at the beginning of the month, I would not be surprised if he's not a finalist. Because here's what I think is going to happen.
Finalist, for sure.
Here's what I think will happen. There's so many big names at the top of the stats race right now that they could eat votes on each other that it gives, like, either people can't decide who number one. Too many guys split first place votes, and Sid gets enough first place votes along with second place or something like that to kind of jump and get the most points. I think that they could all just kind of eat at each other's vote totals, allowing Sid to get in there. Or the voters are just like Crosby and just vote him and he ends up getting it. I could see Sid not winning the Hart, but winning the Ted Lindsay, which is voted on by the players.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I could too, but it's not as sexy as the Hart.
No, it's not nearly as sexy. But I could absolutely see him winning the Hart Trophy, a finalist at the very least, because he's just, I mean, if he drags the corpse of this hockey team to the playoffs, he absolutely deserves a lot of votes. And I would argue, and there's a very strong case that he should win it. Not even like, oh, well, okay, he did this, we'll give him some recognition. He legitimately, if you're going by the definition of the award, he should win it.
Absolutely. I think that that guy, that Kucherov in Tampa, though, is having he's at like 130 points right now on the season.
He has
or something.
136. He has 136.
Dude, what is this, 1988? Like, you've got McDavid, McKinnon, and Cooch all in the 120s, 130s in points. Dude, when's the last time we even saw that? That's kind of more rhetorical, but it's been a while since we've had that many people.
I mean, it's good because it's better than Jamie Benn winning it with like
87 points.
87 points. I'd rather see goals. Like, because you can have good offenses and still have great goaltending.
Totally.
It doesn't have to be an exclusive one way or the other. And again, there's so many great. And what really is good is so many young names up there, which is great for the future of hockey. Yep. I mean, Quinn Hughes has 86 points as a defenseman.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Again, that's not Erik Karlsson last year, but that's insane. Like, that's nuts.
Especially where he's been a good number one puck moving defenseman for a while, but this has been his like swan song. You know what I mean? Like, this has been a hell of a year. Quickly, Joe, revisiting the Sid for Hart. It's hard for us to come on here, I think, and really, because like I'm biased. I watch every single game pretty much, and I see what Sid has done this season, and by the definition of what that award means, the Hart, you know, like the literal the MVP of this team, the reason for their success, all of that. I mean, it's taken a lot of things happening at the right time for this team to turn it around and be where they're at compared to where they were like even 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But dude, Sid's 36 years old. He has 40 goals. I don't know how many points he has, but what does he have? Like, is it like 90, 80?
Crosby?
Yeah.
He has 40 goals and where are my points at here? 40 goals and 85 points.
85 points? Yeah, dude, by a 36-year-old, the captain of a team and where they're at right now, I mean, that just reeks of heart. And like the people that vote, I mean, the Canadian votes, you just gotta wonder if they look at Sid and they're like, he's doing it at this age, that's my guy.
Yeah, I just don't like. I don't think anybody's talking about the 40 goal thing either. That's insane. At that age, 40 goals playing without his best winger, not just because of the trade, but because of injury for a significant portion of the season.
Good point.
Brian Rasmus, a significant portion of the season. He's having a career year. Like, and the power play has been awful.
Yeah, this isn't even a year where they had the power play for the majority of the season.
Yeah, like it's been. I think it
was like
better,
was it like 20 games they didn't score a power play goal?
Yes.
Imagine if he was scoring on the power play. He'd have 50, 55 goals.
Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and. Well, first off, if the power play was good all year, they never would have traded Jay Gensel because they never would have had to trade Jay Gensel. It would have improved the numbers of Karlsson, Letang, Malkin, Rust, Crosby. I'm tired of yelling about the power play. Let's just enjoy them making a push for the playoffs.
Sid for Hart, absolutely. If they make the playoffs, absolutely. Why not? And I would like to hear a good reason as to why he shouldn't win it or at least be a finalist. And I don't want to hear, dude, Kucherov, he's having a great year. I think he's the front runner right now from what I see on Twitter and whatnot. But he doesn't have that je ne sais quoi that Sid has. That's just, he's such a likable guy. Not that, I don't know. We'll get off of it.
He's not an unlikable player.
No. All right, let's move on here. And we're going to go to, let's do another one from Brian here. This is more of a statement, but let's talk about let's take a little break from the hockey and maybe talk about some of the finer things in life here, Robbie. Brian says, this may be the dad in me, but something so satisfying about cutting grass and watching your yard transform to looking pristine.
I mean, that's just a man thing.
You think so? You think that's just instilled in our like DNA structure?
I think it's just like a very American thing. Like, you're just gonna, it's just one. Again, my allergies will get kicked up by the freshly cut grass, especially in the spring. But man, I do love the smell of fresh cut grass. I love the look of it, especially when it's like a good green. Like in the summer when it's like dry and dusty, it can be like whatever. But like when it's in the spring, it's fresh and green.
When it looks like the Masters out there.
Yeah, well, I wish my yard looked like that. It's just like an invigorating kind of feeling. Just it feels really good to see that, but unfortunately,
it massages the OCD too. Not that you have to have OCD to necessarily feel this, but like it's like, dude, when you're just boxing in your yard and you're boxing in the edges and you start to see those like clear cut lines of going back and forth, and at the end, there's nothing like a cold beer after some yard work too, huh? Like an ice cold beer after on a sunny day in the spring.
Oh, there's nothing like a nice cold beer any day in the spring. But yeah, I will agree. After mowing some grass, it's like a nice 70-degree day. Yeah, it's nice.
Maybe the Penguins are on that evening playing some playoff hockey.
That would be nice.
The Pirates are good for the first time in a decade.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Where do we want to go? I did have one, but now. All right, let's speculate a little bit here. From Brian, if the Penguins make the playoffs, who do you want in the first round?
If the Penguins make it into the playoffs, give me I either want it to be. Is there a scenario where they could play Boston?
If they got the first
wild card,
which I do not think is.
I don't think that's feasible.
Tampa Bay is not. Penguins would have to win out, I think. Yes, the Penguins would have to win out. Tampa Bay would have to lose out. So there is the minuscule chance that they could play Boston.
Never say never, right?
Never say never, but everything. And that would include Detroit having to pretty much lose out too. So,
okay.
I'm going to say not exactly zero, but as close as you can get is without it being zero.
For some reason, I just don't buy Boston. I think they're a great regular season team, and I think that their leadership has always been top notch, and they get these players. I mean, Morgan Geekie coming over from Seattle and being like how good he's been. You've got that DeBrusk a couple years ago just wanted nothing to do with that team anymore. He wanted out here, and then he's a key player to their success now. But I just don't buy them. I just don't. I think that this is a year where they're having a great season, not the historical season they had last year. But you're worried about center you're looking at their depth up the middle of the ice, and it's Charlie Coyle's their first line center. Good player, decent player, not a first line center. I think he's a good third line center, maybe a second line. I just think that if you could get a team like the Bruins. I would love to see Marchand and Bunting just hating each other. I would love to see that. Two rats just... I mean, Marchand is the king rat. He's the rat king.
Yeah.
But you got a guy like Bunting who's cut from a similar cloth. And I think that a team like the Penguins, in the playoffs, you need your best players to be better than their best players, and your depth needs to be better than their depth. That's pretty obvious. But you look at a team like the Bruins, I just think... You look at their lineup, I would give me Sid, the way that they're playing right now, MVP, Sid, Gino, Letang, Carlson moving the puck on the back end with the depth around them over Boston. But because there's a slim chance of that happening, give me Carolina. Let's do it. Let's see Bunting versus Gensel.
Yeah, I'd say, again, the options are really only two teams, basically, and it's the Rangers and Carolina. Carolina would be probably the best from the competitive standpoint, but I cannot stress how funny it would be if they went in as the last wild card and knocked out the Rangers in like 6 games. It would perhaps be the funniest possible outcome of the season. And then
Robbie, that would heal me. That would heal my traumas.
I would ascend to play to God. I would ascend to heaven. I would be on another plane pretty much all summer. They could get swept in 4 by the Hurricanes, and I would be just in a completely...
You'd be a different man. Yeah.
I'd be
healed is what I would be.
Yes. My depression would be gone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even need to see a therapist anymore. I would just watch all 6 games of that series, even the ones they lost, because I know that they were going to win that series. Just
give me that, yeah.
Yes. And not only it would also cause like a complete meltdown in the Rangers land. Like you'd have people being fired, traded.
Oh yeah.
You would have Vincent Trocheck could finally come to Pittsburgh when Kyle Dubas trades like a conditional 6th-round pick for him. So
that gets me fired up.
That would make me
heads would roll. Heads would absolutely roll.
Yeah.
Out here in Seattle, I've never had wearing any Penguins anything. I've only ever it's either been fellow Penguins fans that say anything, or it's been Rangers fans that just cannot help themselves to say something stupid to get my attention along the lines of like Cindy Crosby, like, you know, Crybaby Crosby, something like that, and then proceed to just take time out of both of our days to try to engage in a conversation where all they do is talk about how much they hate Sid. And it's just like, it's just funny. There was this dude, I was at a hockey bar a couple years ago, and this dude wearing this dude wearing a massive Rangers jersey, Lundqvist jersey, and he was in sandals and wine. Looked like he'd been drinking wine since the early morning. His lips were all red and he was slurring, and he was smoking a cigarette on the sidewalk and was just going off about Cindy Crosby and how he just can't stand a player like him. And the Rangers, I think it was like they were playing them in the playoffs at that point, and the Penguins beat them. And that guy he could not stand me. I thought it was gonna get ugly. Fortunately, I think the bartender was like, "You've been served far too much. You should, you know, I'm gonna keep serving you waters." And I didn't see him again the rest of the night. But boy, that would just be so nice. But I don't know. I think if they make it into the playoffs, it looks like it's gonna be Carolina, is it not?
It depends on if they finish second or third in the division or second wild card.
Oh, so there is a really good chance they could play the Rangers.
Yes.
Oh, shit. Well, yeah, either of them is fine with me, honestly, because that would mean that they're in the playoffs.
Yeah. If we're being honest.
All right, let's go here. I think it's my turn, right?
Yeah.
All right, how many are we at?
I don't know. We've been doing this. So let's just say 2 more questions each, and then we'll be done.
Okay, a couple more questions here.
Well, no, you ask one, I ask one, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right, that sounds good. Let's see here. Let's go with a question here from Brian, because I think actually no, let's save that one. That one might need a little bit of research. This is a question from Brian. Would you be for or against trading either Erik Karlsson or Chris Letang to Winnipeg for Kyle Connor?
No. Answered that one pretty quick.
Yeah, not even no. I don't think a guy like Kyle Connor, they're so valuable to the team right now. And if you were going to move on from one of them, I think you could. I don't know if Kyle Connor is exactly what you're looking for.
No,
you're looking you would be looking for a young stud prospect, like a can't miss prospect.
Yeah, good question, but my answer is straight hard line. No, I'm not really in the. If the Penguins are serious about competing again next season, those 2 guys, both of those are not that Kyle Connor cannot be important to what the Penguins want to do. Those 2 guys on the back end still provide you with a powerful 1-2 punch. So my answer remains no on that end. I am not a fan of trading either one of those guys.
Agreed.
All right, and final question for this part of the mailbag. We're going to stick with Brian here. Can't help but wonder where this team would be if these call-ups would have been made sooner. Just their energy and speed makes a difference in the bottom 6. I think that's what helped their turnaround in play. Yeah,
so I was totally naive to a guy like Jack St. Ivany, and I liked what Ludwig was bringing to the team. I thought that when Ludwig started getting a little bit more ice time after, we all know how his debut went where he knocked himself unconscious, and he's had a couple of injuries since. I got to admit I liked what he was bringing, but bringing up Ryan Shea and him paired with Jack St. Ivany as that third pair, you got rid of Ruhwedel. I called that too, by the way. I'll never let that, just slip through the cracks. I called Ruhwedel getting traded. But him replace Jack St. Ivany, I love that kid's game. I had no idea I'd seen his name before on the Wilkes-Barre Scranton roster. Never really paid too much attention to what he was doing. You wonder, yeah, you trade out a veteran in Ruhwedel who's been a good pro for you for a really long time, and it just affords this opportunity for a guy like him. Ludwig, I love what he brings, but right now you just you don't mess with what's kind of working for your team. I've liked what Gruden brings at times when he's in the lineup. When Carter was out, I liked what he brought. Yeah, Poulin's getting the look. Puustinen has really solidified himself. I don't think he's been scratched from a game for quite a stretch here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Robbie, we've talked about this. They bring a spunk and a juice and energy to this team when that's been a huge issue all year, right? So you do wonder, like, if you had made some bold moves to kind of part ways with some veterans, plant them in the press box for a few games, and give some of these youngsters. Sullivan alluded to it as well when he was talking about, who was it? He was talking about someone, and he mentioned that the Penguins, with their position that they've been in, they haven't been afforded the patience to let he was talking about Bemstrom. He was talking about Emil Bemstrom, and he scored that breakaway goal. We all remember, like, a couple weeks ago now, maybe a week ago. He talked about how that the Penguins have not been able to have the patience that they wish they had to explore some of these younger players. And plugging in a veteran probably just seems like the safer option when it's, and they've been playing playoff hockey since November. So you wonder how things could have been had this started early. Maybe this is just pushing the right. It's all kind of happening in real time, and you never know. Maybe it would have hurt them earlier in the season, but we're running with it now, and I don't see any of those guys coming out of the lineup anytime soon. Robbie, where are you at with it?
Adam Gretz kind of pointed this out on Saturday after the game, I believe. He pretty much said you cannot overlook the fact that the Penguins' turnaround was when they were just straight up forced to play these guys because of injuries and long-term injuries. They're, again, it's the same thing happened in 2016 when they won the Cup.
Very true.
All these young guys, Brian Russ, Connor Sherry, Scott Wilson, Carter Rowney, all these guys came in and it forced their hand. They got younger, they got faster. Again, these guys are still hungry to prove themselves, so they want to make a good impression, and they've been very good. Puustinen, like you said, very good. St. Ivany, very good. These guys are coming in, playing their roles, and have absolutely helped the system and get the Penguins back into this position.
Agreed. The youth movement, it proves time and time again that if you got the right, if you afford some of these young guys the opportunity, they're fast, dude. It's a fast league. They're fast. They're young. They've been playing. They've been playing. They got something to, what am I trying to say? They have something to prove. And when you inject hungry players into a lineup, this is kind of what happens. And sometimes you wonder how do we forget about these things? Like you said, 2016, perfect example. And I don't think Brian Rust and Connor Sherry was undrafted. Those guys weren't blue chip prospects. No. They were blue collar, lunch pail type players, and that's exactly what you've got right now. So it's awesome. And they have a big game tonight against Toronto. And boy, am I excited. Every game is must watch TV nowadays, huh?
Yeah. Every game's a playoff game. And if they make it, all this is just preparing you mentally for what lies ahead. So fingers crossed, hopefully get it done against Toronto, and just got to keep winning, keep getting the points, and the help will come.
Totally. So I don't know how many questions we did right there. Bear with us. We'll have to go back and figure out which questions we asked, and we'll be back later this evening with a two-part game recap covering the game that just happened with Tampa and this one that they're about to play. So look out for that. We'll do a part 2 mailbag on Thursday to come out on Friday, I think, as far as we know our schedules line up. Little bit of change happening at the Skating Penguin Network. We're obviously, as you've noticed, more and more without our captain, Garrett. He's very much missed. But yeah, so bear with us. We got it covered, and things will get back to some normalcy. Lots of exciting Penguins games to come. Positivity train. Actually, we're not using that anymore, but it's stonks.
It's stonks. We are investing in the stonks.
Investing in stonks, yes, because they are rising. It is time to buy, and yeah, we're not selling. We're like that movie where they bought was it Blockbuster? GameStop. We're holding on to our stonks and we're not selling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Robbie, that's all I got. You got anything?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, for Robbie Noggle, I am Snail. We'll be back with you shortly here. Talk to y'all later.